Have you ever noticed how some people walk into a room and get respect without asking for it, while others bend over backwards, only to be dismissed or ignored? If you've ever kept your mouth shut to avoid tension, smiled through discomfort, or given more than you had just to feel needed, this message is for you. Because here's the truth: most people avoid. The way the world treats you often reflects the way you treat yourself. Not in your words, but in your silence. In the boundaries you don't set. In the peace you abandon to keep others comfortable. Every quiet sacrifice you make to be accepted sends a message, and the world listens. This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about reclaiming yourself. The Stoics taught that you can't control other people, but you can control how you show up. And when you keep betraying your inner voice just to belong, you don't find peace. You lose it. You weren't born to perform. You weren't made to fit into molds that silence you. You were made to live with integrity, to speak with clarity, to act with quiet strength. So today, we're not here to teach you how to earn respect. We're here to remind you how to embody it. If you're ready to stop chasing validation and start choosing yourself, then comment below. I choose to respect myself. Let that be your first public act of quiet power, and everything else will follow. 1. Stop seeking approval. It's weakening your identity. You may not realize it, but every time you bite your tongue to avoid making someone uncomfortable, every time you agree to something that drains you just to keep the peace, and every time you sacrifice your own needs to win someone's approval, you're not being kind. You're bargaining with your identity. You're slowly trading pieces of yourself in exchange for validation that never truly satisfies. It's a quiet erosion of your self-worth, and the more you do it, the more invisible you become, not just to others, but to yourself. I've seen this happen in my own life and in the lives of people I care about. A close friend of mine used to spend her evenings comforting coworkers over the phone, listening to hours of complaints, even when she was mentally and emotionally exhausted. She told me she was afraid that if she said no, she'd be seen as selfish. But the irony was cruel. When she hit a breaking point and needed support, no one reached out. The same people she had overextended herself for simply disappeared. That's the danger of living for approval. It keeps you in a cycle of giving more and receiving less, and over time, it eats away at your sense of self. The Stoics taught that your peace must come from within, that your sense of worth cannot depend on external opinions, which are fleeting and out of your control. They believed that only what lies within your reasoned choices truly belongs to you. If you live trying to manage the image others hold of you, you'll lose the clarity of your own reflection. You'll start measuring your worth by how others respond to you, and your identity becomes reactive, not grounded. A compliment lifts you. A frown crushes you. You start asking yourself, what do they think of me? Instead of, what do I stand for? This shift, though subtle, is powerful and dangerous. Because once your internal compass is replaced by other people's moods, you're no longer steering your life. You're just trying not to rock the boat. People can sense when you don't value yourself. They might not say it out loud, but it's there, in how they speak to you, how they prioritize you, how seriously they take your boundaries. If your presence says, I'll mold myself to please you, then don't be surprised when they take you up on the offer. But when your presence says, I know who I am, with or without your approval, everything shifts. Respect doesn't come from being agreeable, it comes from being grounded, from knowing your worth even when others overlook it, doing what's right for you, even when it's uncomfortable. This isn't about being selfish. It's about emotional discipline. The desire to be liked is deeply human, but when it becomes your guiding principle, it quietly erodes your inner strength. Instead of being your own anchor, you float in everyone else's tide. And here's the twist. The more you try to be liked, the more people overlook you. Why? Because approval seekers are seen as replaceable. If you're always available, always agreeable, always bending, you don't stand out. You become forgettable. What's remembered are those who act with quiet confidence, who set clear emotional boundaries, who are kind but not compromising their dignity to keep others comfortable. So how do you begin to shift? Start by noticing how you feel after doing something just to be liked. Do you feel aligned or empty? That feeling is a compass. It's telling you where you've betrayed yourself. Then try something radical. Choose yourself, even once this week. Skip a social obligation that drains you. Say no without explaining. Disagree calmly and let it sit. It may feel uncomfortable at first, but with time, discomfort turns into clarity. And clarity is power. The more you stop living for approval, the more you start embodying respect, not just from others, but from yourself. And that's the only place it truly begins. 2. Your silence is a signal, and the world responds. There's a common belief that silence means maturity, patience, or emotional strength. But in many situations, silence is not neutral, it's a message. And often the message it sends is not the one you intend. When you stay quiet in the face of disrespect, when you let someone interrupt you, overlook you, or talk down to you without saying a word, you're not avoiding conflict, you're teaching them how to treat you. I remember my neighbor, Carol, a gentle woman in her 70s, who used to receive packages left haphazardly at her front steps. Sometimes boxes were damaged, and other times left in the rain. Yet every time she simply picked them up, wiped them off, and moved on. One afternoon I asked her, "Why don't you ever report it?" She smiled and said, "Oh, it's not worth it. I'm old. They don't care what I say anyway." That moment stuck with me. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. Her silence had become her norm, and over time, she started believing the same story the world told her. You don't matter enough to speak. From a Stoic point of view, silence in the face of mistreatment is not noble. It's a failure to use your voice as a tool of virtue. The Stoics believed in speaking truth with courage and precision, not in suppressing discomfort to preserve temporary peace. If you tolerate being dismissed or spoken over, you are not preserving harmony. You're allowing your own dignity to erode. And with time, your silence becomes a kind of consent. Not because you agree with how you're being treated, but because you've given up the right to be heard. The longer this continues, the more you internalize it. You begin to edit your thoughts before they even reach your lips. You withhold your insights, your pain, your ideas, not because they don't matter, but because you assume no one is listening. And the more you assume that, the more it becomes true. Stoicism teaches that your dignity lies in your ability to align your actions with your values. If you believe in fairness but remain quiet when disrespected, you're out of alignment. That misalignment doesn't just affect how others see you, it chips away at how you see yourself. So, how do you reclaim your voice? Begin simply. The next time someone cuts you off, pause and say calmly, "I wasn't finished." Do not explain. Do not raise your voice. Just state it with calm authority. Let your presence do the rest. Practice telling yourself daily, "I have the right to be heard." Let that sentence become your quiet anchor. When you practice speaking up, not to dominate, but to affirm your worth, you begin to shift the energy around you. People sense when someone respects themselves, just as they sense when someone won't stand up for themselves. The world reflects the standards you set. If your silence has told the world you'll tolerate anything, then let your voice now begin to say otherwise. 3. You don't get respect by earning it. You get it by embodying it. There's a common trap many fall into, the belief that if you just work harder, prove yourself more, and stay endlessly agreeable, people will respect you. But the truth is, respect doesn't come from how much you do. It comes from who you are while doing it. I remember attending a small community meeting where two people stood up to speak. The first one went on at length, listing achievements, credentials, and stories meant to impress. The second person spoke a single direct sentence, measured, calm, and clear. And when they sat down, there was a long pause, then a collective nod from everyone in the room. Nobody clapped, nobody praised. But you could feel it. Presence had spoken. And presence doesn't need decoration. In the philosophy of Stoicism, respect is not something you chase, it is something you carry. It's in the stillness of your gaze, the steadiness of your tone, the way you hold yourself when no one's watching. When you try too hard to be respected, you're already giving away your power. Because the unspoken message behind over-explaining, over-performing, and overcompensating is this: I don't believe I'm enough, so I hope this will make me enough. That energy, no matter how well-intentioned, repels respect instead of attracting it. People feel that when someone is desperate for recognition, and they treat that desperation the way most people treat noise, they tune it out. The Stoics taught that dignity is rooted in self-control. You don't need the world to validate your worth if you've already built that validation within. And the moment you stop trying to earn approval is the moment your energy changes. You walk differently. You speak less, but what you say carries weight. You stop apologizing for taking up space. That shift isn't loud, it's steady. And it makes people pay attention, not because you're demanding it, but because you're radiating something rare: quiet confidence. In a world where many rush to speak, the one who speaks only when necessary becomes a voice others lean in to hear. There's a dangerous illusion in believing that respect is something others give you if you just check the right boxes. That mindset puts you in a never-ending cycle of proving. You start to believe that if someone didn't respond well to you, you just need to do more. Be nicer, be louder, be more useful. But that approach, though common, backfires. Because when your actions are rooted in the fear of not being good enough, they become hollow. People sense that. They might appreciate your effort, but they won't respect you. Because real respect isn't about how much you sacrifice. It's about how firmly you stand in your own presence, even when you're doing nothing at all. So instead of asking, "What should I do to earn their respect?" ask, "Am I embodying the kind of presence I respect?" That question flips the entire conversation. It brings the power back to you. The Stoics never asked for approval from the world. They lived by principles, not popularity. They weren't afraid of being disliked because their sense of self didn't rise and fall with other people's moods. And neither should yours. Every time you walk into a room trying to be impressive, you lose touch with what makes you impressive to begin with: your unshakable center. The next time you're in a group setting, try speaking less. Let your silence do the talking. When you do speak, be clear and direct. Don't over-justify. Let your words come from stillness, not insecurity. And each morning, before the world places its demands on you, pause and ask yourself one thing: how would I carry myself today if I already knew I was enough? Then act from that place, not to gain respect, but because you already have it. When you live that truth long enough, people stop questioning it. They feel it, they adjust. Because respect that is embodied doesn't ask, it declares. And the world listens. 4. Saying no is self-respect in action. There's a quiet kind of power in the word no. It's short, it's simple, but for many people it's incredibly difficult to say. We've been conditioned to associate no with rejection, confrontation, and guilt, so we avoid it. We say yes when we mean no. We agree to things that drain us, overwhelm us, or go against our priorities, just to avoid disappointing others. But each time we do that, we're not preserving peace. We're eroding our self-respect. I remember when my younger sister told me about a season in her life when she constantly watched her friends' children. She was working remotely, swamped with deadlines, barely getting sleep. But every time her friend asked for help, she said yes, afraid of being seen as selfish. Then one day, she gently said, "I can't today." Her friend was surprised, maybe even a little put off, but everything was fine. And more importantly, my sister said she felt like she could finally breathe. From a Stoic perspective, saying no isn't rude, it's reasonable. The Stoics taught that our energy, our time, and our inner peace are finite. If we give them away without discernment, we're not being virtuous. We're being reckless. And when we can't say no, we end up saying yes to everyone else's priorities while abandoning our own. Over time, this pattern creates resentment, not just toward others, but toward ourselves. Because deep down, we know we're betraying something important. We're abandoning our own boundaries to preserve a temporary sense of harmony that usually benefits others more than us. Saying no is one of the most honest acts of self-ownership. It signals that you know your limits, that your well-being matters, and that your worth doesn't depend on being everything to everyone. But for many, guilt is the reflex that follows. The moment the word slips out, the mind rushes to explain, to soften, to apologize. That guilt isn't proof that you're wrong. It's proof that you've spent too long prioritizing other people's comfort over your own emotional clarity. The Stoics would remind us that guilt, like any emotion, is information, not a command. It signals a belief system that may need to be examined. And in this case, the belief might be, if I don't always say yes, I'll lose connection, love, or approval. But any relationship that only thrives when you say yes to things you don't want, that's not a healthy connection. That's emotional dependency. True respect is built where boundaries are present. It's tested when you finally say no to a pattern that used to define you. And often, the first people to resist your new boundary are the ones who benefited most from your lack of one. That resistance is uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Because every time you say no to what depletes you, you say yes to what grounds you. You claim time for rest, space for healing, and clarity for decision-making. You stop performing, and you start living in alignment with your core values. And that is where quiet confidence begins. Not with shouting your worth, but by no longer offering it up for negotiation. You don't need to be harsh. You don't need to explain yourself endlessly. No can be kind, firm, and complete. You can say, "That doesn't work for me," and leave it there. And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Not because you're becoming cold, but because you're becoming clear. In the Stoic sense, it's not about building walls, it's about guarding your inner fortress. The more you respect that space, the more others begin to respect it too. And the beauty of this shift is that you don't need to force anyone to change. You simply change the energy you allow around you. That in itself is leadership. So start small. This week, notice one situation where your impulse is to say yes out of habit. Pause. Ask yourself, if I deeply respected myself, what would I say? Then say it. Let it be clean, let it be calm, and most of all, let it be yours. Because every time you say no to the world, you make space to say yes to yourself. And that's where real self-respect begins. 5. Stop bargaining with your worth. There's a subtle kind of exhaustion that comes from constantly giving more than you have, hoping quietly that someone will notice. Not because you're generous, but because deep down you believe being helpful is the only way to be seen. I remember talking with an old colleague who often stayed late at work, took on extra projects, and volunteered for every task no one else wanted. He believed that one day his effort would be recognized. But when promotion time came, the role went to someone who was less available but more assertive. He looked at me, half laughing, and said, "Maybe I made myself too convenient to be valued." That moment stayed with me, because it revealed something we rarely say out loud. Sometimes we betray our worth in the name of usefulness. The Stoics taught that you must never base your value on anything external, not approval, not status, not reward. True worth is internal. When you constantly trade your time, energy, or emotional peace for validation, you're not investing in relationships. You're bargaining with your dignity, and it never pays off the way you hope. People don't respect you more because you do more. They respect you when you carry yourself with integrity, when you know where your limit is, and when you uphold it without apology. If you're always available, always agreeable, always fixing everything before anyone asks, you don't seem powerful, you seem desperate. And desperation rarely earns the respect you're after. At the heart of this cycle is fear. The fear of being forgotten, the fear of being left out, the fear that if you stop giving, people will stop staying. And it's understandable, we all want to feel needed. But there's a difference between being needed and being used. The first nourishes you, the second empties you. The Stoics would say, know the difference. If your presence must be earned through constant sacrifice, it's not presence, it's performance. And performing for love, attention, or status might bring temporary approval, but it leaves lasting emptiness. You begin to notice this pattern in small moments, like when you agree to help, even though your body is tired and your mind is somewhere else. Or when you say yes because saying no feels like admitting you're not enough. Or when you carry someone else's burden because silence feels more frightening than resentment. These are not acts of kindness. They are quiet negotiations made at the cost of your self-worth. And the world learns from you, not by your words, but by what you allow, what you give without balance, and what you tolerate without speaking. The shift begins when you ask yourself one simple question. Am I doing this out of love or out of fear? If the answer leans toward fear of being judged, left behind, or unloved, pause. You don't need to justify your worth by overextending. You don't need to be everything to everyone to be enough. In fact, when you stop trying to prove yourself, people see you differently. They feel the calm boundary in your tone. the quiet clarity in your choices. That's not rejection, that's self-respect, and it changes everything. You can still be kind, you can still care deeply. But when that kindness comes from groundedness, not guilt, it carries a different weight. It says, I am here because I choose to be, not because I need to be chosen. And that energy is magnetic. People are drawn to those who don't need to prove their value, because their presence speaks for itself. So next time someone asks for something, pause. Not to calculate what they want, but to listen for what you need. If you want to say yes, say it clearly. But if you're saying yes to avoid feeling small, you're already shrinking. Try saying, I'd love to help, but today I can't. No drama, no guilt, just the truth. And notice what happens, not just in how they react, but in how you feel. You may be surprised to find that the world didn't fall apart when you stopped bargaining. Instead, for the first time, you might feel whole. 6. Your shadow holds the key to your power. Most of us have been taught to hide parts of ourselves to be accepted. We suppress anger to appear calm. We bury pride to seem humble. We silence our hurt to be seen as emotionally strong. Over time, this inner censorship becomes so automatic that we forget those parts even exist. But they do, and they wait. I once had a friend who, as a child, was constantly told she was too sensitive. Every time she cried, her family rolled their eyes. Every time she spoke up, someone made fun of her tone. So she learned to smile, even when she was hurting. Years later, in a corporate job, she found herself being overlooked, interrupted, and dismissed. Until one day, during a team meeting, a colleague brushed off her idea again. Something in her shifted. She looked up and said clearly, I don't agree, and I don't think this process is fair. The room went silent, not out of discomfort, but out of respect. Because for the first time, she wasn't hiding, she was whole. In Stoic philosophy, the path to inner strength is not paved by avoidance. It's built through awareness. The Stoics didn't believe in labeling emotions as good or bad. Instead, they saw every emotion as information. What matters is how we respond to it. But here's the catch. You can't manage what you refuse to acknowledge. The parts of yourself you hide, your anger, your discomfort, your boundaries, don't disappear. They grow stronger in the dark. And when unacknowledged, they show up not with clarity, but with chaos. The person who explodes unexpectedly, the one who freezes in a moment that demands strength, the one who walks away feeling small even when they said nothing wrong, these are often signs of unexamined emotional weight. Stoicism calls us to face these parts calmly, not to suppress them, but to integrate them. There's strength in your frustration, there's clarity in your discomfort, there's power in your voice that trembles. But when you ignore these signals, when you strive to be endlessly agreeable or perfectly composed, you don't become noble, you become invisible. And the worst part is you start confusing invisibility with virtue. You tell yourself, it's better to keep peace, when what you really mean is it's easier to keep hiding. That kind of peace is not harmony, it's self-erasure. The world respects people who are centered, not people who are perfect. And being centered requires knowing what triggers you, what offends you, what makes you feel unseen, not so you can react, but so you can choose. That's what Stoic calmness really is. Not silence, but clarity. Not detachment, but discipline. And clarity begins when you reclaim the parts of yourself that were once shamed into silence. Maybe you were taught that assertiveness is rude, that anger is dangerous, that wanting more makes you selfish. But those lessons were meant to control you, not empower you. Now it's your turn to rewrite them. The next time you feel yourself shrinking in a conversation, take a breath, not to run away from the moment, but to return to it with presence. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to explain everything. You just need to say one true thing. I don't feel okay with this. Or, that doesn't work for me. Or simply, I see it differently. These small acts of expression are how your shadow begins to speak, not as a monster, but as your missing strength. When you integrate what you've suppressed, you stop living in fear of emotional exposure. You stop apologizing for having edges. And more than anything, you stop letting people walk through the parts of you were too afraid to defend. You become calm, but not passive, kind, but not silent, and powerful, but not performative. That's the strength Stoicism points us toward. Not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. not the erasure of your shadow, but the choice to walk with it fully, so nothing within you can be used against you ever again. 7. Until you can be alone, you'll always settle for less. There's a silence that feels like peace, and there's a silence that feels like absence. Learning the difference is what separates freedom from fear. I once met a middle-aged man while walking through a quiet park. He had divorced his wife after 20 years of marriage, not because they no longer cared for each other, but because, in his words, I was disappearing inside the life we built. He said he had tried for years to hold the marriage together by compromising, by softening his voice, shrinking his needs, and placing harmony above honesty. Now he lived alone. He had taken up baking, read novels again, and walked his dog every evening. I used to be terrified of being alone, he said, but now I think it was the first time I heard my own voice again. This is the hidden root of why so many people remain stuck in painful relationships, why they tolerate disrespect, and why they lower their standards without realizing it. It's not because they don't know they deserve better. It's because they believe they can't face the alternative: solitude. But Stoic philosophy teaches that emotional independence is the foundation of dignity. If your sense of worth depends on having someone next to you at all times, then your choices are never really your own. You're not choosing who you love, you're choosing who helps you avoid loneliness. The truth is, when you fear being alone, you negotiate with your standards. You settle. You rationalize red flags. You accept less, not because you want less, but because you're more afraid of the void than of being devalued. This fear is rarely loud. It doesn't scream in your face. Instead, it whispers things like, maybe I'm asking for too much, or at least they stayed. You begin to convince yourself that crumbs are a meal, that attention is love, and that being tolerated is the same as being chosen. But none of that is true, and deep down you know it. Stoics valued solitude not as isolation, but as clarity. They saw it as a return to the self, a way to reconnect with your values, your peace, your inner compass. Because only when you are comfortable in your own company can you make decisions that reflect strength, not desperation. Being alone teaches you what truly matters to you. It forces you to listen to your inner dialogue, confront your fears, and rebuild a life that isn't shaped around other people's presence or absence. You stop performing and start becoming. It doesn't mean you'll never feel the ache of missing someone. It means you won't let that ache choose your future. It means you'll no longer chase people who drain you just to avoid sitting at an empty table. And here's what's quietly revolutionary about that. When you no longer fear being alone, you stop clinging to things that wound you. You don't ask for closure where there's chaos. You don't wait for people to change. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. You simply walk, because staying would cost your peace, and peace is no longer negotiable. To begin this shift, spend intentional time with yourself. Not distracted, not scrolling, but present. Watch a movie alone, walk without a destination, cook dinner just for you. At first, the silence may feel heavy, but stay with it, because underneath that discomfort is something sacred, the rediscovery of your own sufficiency. And once you've touched that, no one can offer you just something when you've already tasted enough. The Stoics would remind you, freedom is not the absence of attachment. It's the presence of inner alignment. And when you are truly aligned, solitude is not something to escape. It's something you choose. From that place, love becomes a gift, not a need. Relationships become partnerships, not dependencies. And your life finally becomes yours. Self-respect is not a personality trait. It's a daily practice. It shows up in how you speak to yourself, in the boundaries you set, and in the silence you no longer tolerate. You don't build emotional resilience by waiting for others to validate your worth. You build it by acting from within, by saying no when it matters, by walking away when something breaks your peace, and by learning to stand alone without feeling empty. The Stoic path reminds us that calm is earned through clarity, and clarity begins the moment you stop betraying yourself to belong. If anything in this video spoke to you, if you've ever stayed silent to avoid being abandoned, or kept giving just to feel seen, know that you're not alone. Many people are waking up from the quiet habit of self-neglect. So take this moment to be honest. What's one way you've been bargaining with your worth? Share it in the comments below. Your story might be the mirror someone else needs. And if this message brought you a new perspective, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. There's more to come. More tools, more clarity, and more quiet strength to help you rebuild from the inside out.